So we are talking about active transport across the cell membrane. It usually required when it's necessary to move solutes against a concentration gradient from their low concentration to the high concentration across the membrane. Sometimes cells need to do it, and usually it requires carrier proteins, or they are also called solute pumps. There is a primary active transport, and there is also secondary active transport. Primary active transport causes change in transport protein shape. So there is a protein embedded in the cell membrane, and it changes its shape and carries ions from one side of the membrane to another using ATP energy. Energy from hydrolysis of ATP, it means ATP breaks away one of its phosphate groups, and that process releases energy. Sodium-potassium pump is the most important example of primary active transport. It's located in all cell membranes, and it moves sodium and potassium ions across the cell membrane, but in opposite directions, each against its concentration gradient. So that is a cell membrane. That is your protein, sodium-potassium pump, and that's what happens. First, sodium enters the protein. ATP energy is used. One phosphate group breaks away, releases energy. Protein changes its shape and releases sodium onto the other side of the membrane. Soon after that, two potassium ions arrive and enter the protein. That phosphate group that was sitting here breaks away and releases additional energy. Protein changes its shape again, turns to the other side, and releases two potassium ions. That's how sodium-potassium pump works using ATP energy. Okay, now what is secondary active transport? It depends on an ion gradient created by primary active transport. And energy stored in ionic gradients is used indirectly to drive transport of other solutes. What that means? Somewhere there was a sodium-potassium, that's a cell membrane. Somewhere there was a sodium-potassium pump. While sodium-potassium pump is working using ATP energy, some extra energy is left, and it can help neighbor proteins sitting close to it to move substances across the membrane. Sometimes it's not just one ion is moved, but sometimes it's more than one substance can go at a time, ions or small molecules. So when two substances are transported in same direction simultaneously, it's called a symport. When two substances are transported in opposite directions, it's called antiport. Okay, next type of active transport is a vesicular transport. Vesicular transport is necessary when cell needs to transport large particles, sometimes very large like bacteria or viruses, macromolecules, or large amount of fluids across plasma membrane, and it happens in vesicles. That process also requires ATP or cellular energy. Before we continue, I would suggest you to stop this lecture, go on YouTube and find this video, endocytosis and exocytosis HD animation. It's a very short video. Please watch it. It will give you a very good idea about what vesicular transport is. Then we'll continue. Okay, so vesicular transport. Endocytosis, it's transport into cell. It means that plasma membrane or cell membrane forms a vesicle and it takes some large particle into that vesicle. Large particle arrives close to cell membrane. Cell membrane forms a vesicle around it and takes it inside. So that is called endocytosis. There are three types of endocytosis. When cells take a solid particle, like cell is eating, it's called phagocytosis. Many immune cells engage in phagocytosis of bacterial cells.